If you're considering a move to Salina, Texas, there's one thing that can catch you super off guard if you're not familiar with it. That's going to be your MUD and PID tax. And today's video, I'm going to explain everything to you because if you run a $500,000 home through an online mortgage calculator and then you have a local lender run it, your payment's going to be hundreds, if not potentially several hundreds, over $500 difference if your home falls into MUD or PID tax. Because the biggest mistake I see buyers make when considering a move to Salina or Prosper or really any North Texas new construction community is the MUD and PID tax. Most people assume, and I totally get it, makes total sense that, hey, a $500,000 home is a $500,000 home and it's gonna have the same payment across the board, but that's not the case in North Texas. If you compare a $500,000 in Ramble in Salina versus a Legacy Hills home, you're gonna have two completely different payments and one may not fit your budget. Now, don't worry, by the end of this video, you're gonna have a clear understanding of what they're for, should you avoid them, because I really think they have an analyzed stigma around them. They have a really negative connotation, which, hey, I don't blame you. I don't want to pay any more taxes than I have to, whether that's on income tax, property tax, grocery tax, whatever it may be. No one wants to pay taxes, but I'm going to teach you kind of how to look at it and if the trade-offs are worthwhile for you and your family. Now, most buyers shop based off the home price, which makes total sense, right? That's where I would totally start if I wasn't aware of these MUD and PID taxes. And that's really going to be a big mistake for you. I think that's where it's important to have someone that's local, not only a realtor like myself, but also a local lender that understands those. Nothing against online lenders, but some of them aren't the greatest. We'll leave it at that. Because, you know, a $500,000 home that's in a MUD and or PID, sometimes they can be in both, you know, it's going to have a lot higher payment at, you know, a 2.9% tax rate than a $500,000 at a 1.9%. And that's, you know, $400 a month. That's a significant amount. Now, of course, your monthly payment is going to be made up of several factors, not just your tax rate. You're going to have your principal, interest, HOA, taxes, insurance. The taxes are, you know, more than likely the biggest surprise, especially if you're moving from out of state. So why are Salina's taxes so much higher than neighboring cities like Frisco, McKinney, and Allen? First, to understand that there are property taxes aren't really just for the government to say, we want you to be taxed, right? They're going to fund your schools, your city tax, county tax, sometimes community colleges, that's hit or miss. And then your special districts like your MUD, which is your Municipal Utility District, that one always messes me up. And then your PID, your Public Improvement District. Now, I'm going to go over the differences and comparison of a MUD and a PID later. There's not a single Salina tax. Every home is a different combination of different taxing authorities, different schools, not in a MUD, in another taxing district. There's another layer that can cause even more confusion for you. Now, many buyers hear the term MUD or PID and instantly say, I'm not going to live in the community. You just get an ick about it. Which I get, but I really think if you stop and think about it, I think sometimes it makes sense. I bought in a MUD, so that's not just me being a realtor saying, don't worry about it, buy the home. I bought in a MUD, I pay an extra 0.69% in taxes, which, like, I mean, it's extra several $1,000s a year I pay. I don't love it, but we'll go into the breakdown of when I think it makes sense to actually buy in one of these. Now, the Municipal Utility District, it's a way for them to finance infrastructure for these new communities. That's why you see it in the more, you know, rural areas, even though Salina is booming right now. It's becoming less and less rural every day. Because, right, obviously, before a home's built, you've got to have water and sewage there, drainage, roads to get there, all your other utilities have to be there. And obviously, that stuff costs money. So rather than the cities paying for it all up front, they roll out the MUDs, they fund those improvements. Now, like I said, MUDs are super popular. Really in Salina, you have some in Frisco, some in Little Elm. You have them scattered all throughout, but more communities have them than don't have them in Salina. So it's something that's hard to get away from if you really do love Salina, but not impossible. So don't cross Salina off your list entirely. But they're common because, right, Salina in like 2010 was 6,000 people and today it's over 60,000 people. So obviously that would be a lot of money for the city to roll up front for it. So they roll it out in the mud. It's an extra tax assessment. They're anywhere from like an extra 0.4% to I think the highest one is like 1.1, but most of them fall in 0.6 to 0.8%. Now, the mud is long-term. Now, the PID, which we'll talk about in a minute, can eventually be paid off. So, I mean, if you imagine, let's do 0.5% for easy numbers, right? You have home A over here in a community without a mud or PID, and then you have home B that's here. $400,000 at 0.5%. It's an extra $2,000 a year, right? A little under $200 a month. So, that's not a ton, but that could be enough to really stretch your budget. Or, that could be groceries for, half a month, or gas in your car. So that money could be spent elsewhere. So you can 100% avoid it. But stick around, because after I explain PIDs, I'm going to go why I think it makes sense sometimes to buy in these communities. Now, if you have questions about either of these, or you're thinking of making a move, want to break down, does buying in one of these make sense for your personal situation? Reach out to me. All my contact info is below. I'm happy to just be a resource and answer your questions. But let's move on to a PID. They're going to ask, what's the difference between a MUD and a PID? Great question. I'm glad you asked. Now, MUDs typically fund your utility infrastructure, hence utility district, municipal utility district, while your PIDs often fund community improvement. So it stands for public improvement district. So when you break them out, it's simple. Okay, that's the difference in the two. So the PID is going to fund things like landscaping, monument entrances at your neighborhood, which I'd rather just not have a monument entrance and a lower PID personally. It does make the neighborhood look cool, but this isn't about what I personally would rather have. Parks, trails, decorative lighting, hiking, biking trails, roads, and they vary how long they last, right? I told you it could get paid off. So Cross Creek Meadows has one, and the payoff was 30 years. Now, you can pay them off up front, and sometimes what builders do to be more competitive is they buy it down. So I know Normandy Homes, which I have a client closing on in Cross Creek Meadows, they bought it down more than the other builders, which is kind of a sneaky little advantage they did, which I love it. So the payment was less. So the upfront payoff amount, if you just had cash, wanted to get rid of it was like 41,000 versus if you pay it for the full 30 years, you ended up paying 79,000 or something. So if you want to get rid of it, you can. In that one, it was anywhere from it was like $200 to $500 a month, depending on lot size. And that's something you'll see is PIDs and your MMD tax, which is similar. I'll do another video on that, or based on lot size. So that's kind of nice versus MUD is just kind of a flat tax across the board. Your PID is based off lot size. So like, that depends. So I've seen anywhere from 20 to 30 years on your payoff amount. So that's another huge advantage if you're buying a resale home. If they have the PID paid off, right? That's sometimes really attractive to buyers. Now, before I go into kind of the math and when it does make sense to buy in one, because I don't think it makes sense to write it off completely necessarily. Kind of go into it. Some neighborhoods can have both. Some sections have a MUD, some sections have a PID. Some sections in that same neighborhood, like I said, have both, and some have none. So it's really across the board. It gets confusing. It's something I'll help you walk through if you're planning a move here to North Texas. Don't worry, we'll make sure, ask the builder, know how much it is. We'll make sure that you run the numbers. Let me give you an example. I would always make sure, if you go new construction, 90 times out of 100 at least, you're ending up using the builder's lender. With that said, so before you go out, right, this is something I help my buyers with, is making sure they understand what the MUD and PID is. If we're going to look at a community, hey, this one's in a MUD or PID, this is the cost, and walking you through that. Now, chances are, right, the builder is going to have some incentives that are untouchable to an outside lender. I would still encourage you to chat with an outside lender, one that you know, like, trust, and is reputable. I've got a couple great ones I can connect you with, and I'll tell you why. Now, this is not the case for all builders lenders, but a few of them, my clients have felt this way, and it's kind of like, oh, we have to use this guy because otherwise we don't get an interest rate incentive and like $20,000. So sometimes, right, again, this isn't all of them. Sometimes the builder's lender views people as just a number, and unfortunately that's how it is. So if it's a little bit more difficult or tricky of a loan, they just may say no and then leave you hanging with your earnest money out. Even though you would qualify, it's a little more legwork because these new builds have everyone coming in. I mean, everyone comes in, they get tossed, go talk to Don, go talk to Susie, versus if you connect with someone you know and it's a little more personable, they're gonna walk you through, make sure you understand what's going on, how the taxes work, all of that. Of course, I can help too. Some neighborhoods, right, they can have both, none, neither, one of each. So it really depends on the neighborhood and section. So remember, MUDs, they don't get paid off. PIDs, they do get paid off. Normally 20 to 30 years is the payoff timeline, but let's talk about the math behind. Okay, let me talk about when it would potentially make sense for you. Again, this is a personal decision, but I'll explain the math behind it so that you can mathematically put pen to paper. So pause the video right now, go grab a pen and paper, and this depends what price range you're shopping at. Now, I'm gonna use $1 million just for easy math, and we're gonna say the MUD or PID is worth 0.5%. So let's say you have home A, not in a MUD or PID, 2% tax rate. You have home B in a MUD or PID, 2.5% tax rate. So your payment difference is, what is that? $5,000 a year, a little over $400 a month. So let's use $400 a month, for example. Let's just say your payment was $4,000 a month on this home and you qualified for it. And then this one without it was $3,500. So obviously you've got to like this home more, right? You're paying more. You've got to like the location, the amenities, all of that. What I would encourage you to do is say, hey, if I got rid of the MUD or PID tax, my purchasing power would be, in this case, an extra $400 more a month. So it's about an extra, on the lending side, every $10,000 cost you about $70 a month in payment. So let's call it $100, make it easy. So you could afford $400 more without a MUD or PID. So what we do is, right, you're at $1 million. So in this case, it'd be $1,040,000. The math is wrong on that. This is for an example, all right? Could you go find a home that you have the same payment? You have a $4,000 payment at $1 million, but if it wasn't in a MUD or PID, you might be able to afford like $1,050,000 or $1,001,000, $1,002,000. You get what I'm saying? You may be able to afford more with the same payment. Now, if you can do that, I would personally rather have more home and lower taxes. But if you can't find a home, you love the location, the neighborhood, the amenities, you know, location, school district it's zoned in, whatever it may be. If you don't love it as much, then just bite the bullet on the MUD, right? Because you don't want to wake up every day and be like, I wish I was paying a MUD tax because I hate this neighborhood or I hate this house. So that's what I did. With mine, I'm transparent. I paid $340,000 for my home. My payment would have been the same on a $360,000 that wasn't in a MUD. I looked everywhere. I didn't find a $360,000 home that I liked as much as this home. So I hope that made sense. I feel like it does. It's really confusing, so I hope it made sense. If it didn't, like I said, I don't care if you call, text, email me, ask for clarification. I'm happy to walk you through it. That's how I compare the two homes if they're in a MUD or PID, right? Because I don't want you to just look at your payment and be like, oh, that sucks, you're in a MUD. Well, let's see if we can find you one without a MUD, because you may be able to get an extra bedroom if you avoid the MUD or PID tax, or you may be able to now afford a bigger backyard or a better location, because you know the MUD tax may be a further north community. You may be able to get one further south for the same payment and save 5-10 minutes every day driving. Now again, I know that was kind of a short video, but not a whole lot to cover on MUD or PID taxes, but I've had several people reach out and ask me to break those down and explain it. So I wanted to do that. So again, I would encourage you, if you're shopping in North Texas, one, of course, reach out to me. I can help you know which ones are in a MUD or PID and navigate you through that. But when you're looking, just know, is it in a MUD or PID? Don't write it off completely, because that neighborhood may have the best floor plans, best amenities, best fitness center and pools and playgrounds, parks, ponds, location for you. You don't want to write it off over $200 a month. Now, also, don't assume that every $500,000 home in Salina is the same. So that's where reaching out to a great lender, you know. Of course, you can get some good ballparks online, but it's always good to talk to someone that has it and know, hey, my maximum payment amount you either qualify for or are comfortable for is this. So in this community, we can get a $470. And in this community, we can get a $530, right? That's something to just keep in mind and know. Hope that was helpful. Hope that makes sense, because not everywhere is taxed the same. I would encourage you, like I said, reach out to a lender. I don't care who it is. I have great resources if you need them. They're both local here in North Texas, and they'll be able to walk you through that. They walk buyers through mud and PID taxes every week, so they're super familiar with them. But let me know what questions you have, because, right, I hope that just provides clarity as you navigate the North Texas real estate market. Be sure to check out my other videos. I've got a ton of North Texas real estate, whether that's home tours, neighborhood overviews, neighborhood comparisons, city pros and cons, a lot of helpful information. So be sure to subscribe, don't miss that. And I hope to see you here in Texas soon.